Welcome. So you have recently started jumping rope, or you have recently decided that you want to begin jumping rope. That's awesome. It's such a fun activity, and there are so many health benefits associated with it. And in today's video, I'm going to share some tips and techniques that will make it easier to learn how to jump rope, specifically in relation to the basic 2-foot hop, which is often the first move that people learn when they start jumping rope. And it makes perfect sense. I'll come a little bit closer to the camera here. With the basic 2-foot hop, both feet are close together. Both feet are pushing off the ground with an equal amount of force, and both feet land on the ground at basically the same time. So, because both feet are landed on the ground at the same time, they're both pushing off the ground at basically the same time and with the same amount of force. That means each leg, each foot is doing an equal amount of work. And therefore, your body weight is evenly distributed over both legs. So it makes sense to use the basic 2-foot hop when you're first learning how to jump rope. As you might be able to tell there, I have 2 ropes here on the ground. This is a basic PVC jump rope. So the handles themselves, they're a longer handle than a typical jump rope, and that's okay. It might be a personal preference. The rope itself only costs $1 or $2. You can get really cheap PVC replacement ropes that are very cheap. And if you first start learning how to jump rope, a basic PVC rope might be a great starter to see if you like the activity. And then if you want, then you can experiment maybe with more expensive jump ropes, which is why I have this one here today. Going back to the basic PVC jump rope, you might find that you just like using them as opposed to using more expensive ropes, and that's fine. I love PVC jump ropes for one reason in particular, because they're so cheap and therefore they're easy to replace, and I don't mind jumping rope using them on various surfaces from concrete to timber, so I'm less concerned about the rope getting damaged because they're easy to replace if they do damage or if they do kind of rip in half. Talking about this PVC jump rope for a second, a good rule of thumb is, if you take your foot and step in the center of the rope, and then you pull the 2 handles horizontal like so, the rope should come up to about the base of your chest. That is a good length, a good rule of thumb when you first start jumping rope. Now, if you like jumping, as I do, with my elbows close to the sides of my body, using mostly my wrists and my forearms to spin the rope, having the rope come up to about the base of my chest like so is just perfect. But if you like to maybe jump rope with your arms farther out from the sides of your body, you might want a rope that's slightly longer. You might want the rope to come up a couple inches, an inch or 2 above the base of your chest. And the reason being is, if I have my elbows against the sides of my body, look at here, the rope is making contact with the ground. But as soon as I start moving my arms out from the sides of my body, notice the rope is getting a little bit shorter. Of course, it's the same rope length, but because I have my arms moved out from the sides of my body, the rope is coming off the ground. I'll bring my elbows closer to the sides of my body. The rope, there's a little bit more slack there. Farther away, it comes off the ground. And therefore, in order for me to jump this rope here, look how high it is off the ground. I'm going to have to jump a decent amount off the ground. I don't know, 4 or 5 inches there. But if I have a more relaxed kind of arm position where my elbows are close to the sides of my body, you can even bring your forearms close to the ground, you create slack in the rope. So therefore, I don't really need to jump too high off the ground to clear this rope. So that's just something to keep in mind. If you have your arms a little bit farther away from the sides of your body, you might want a rope that comes a little bit above the base of your chest. If you like to keep your elbows close to the sides of your body, you can have a rope that basically comes up to about the base of your chest. And the more advanced you get, of course, you could experiment with an even shorter rope. A shorter rope will just mean that the rope rotates around faster. Now, if the rope is too long, let's say if the rope comes up to basically my collarbone here, that means the rope is going to take longer to spin around. I'm going to have to spin it a little bit harder to make that rope spin around. The rope might also hit the ground ahead of my feet. But the more advanced you are, you can play around with different jump rope lengths. But when you first start jumping rope, a good rule of thumb is the rope should come up to about the base of your chest, and then if you like to use arm position where you're a little bit farther away from the body, you might want the rope to come a little bit above the base of your chest. Okay, and here I have a cross rope jump rope. Now this is a more expensive jump rope variety. It's a lot more expensive than a lot of the jump ropes on the market, and that is the reason I have a mat here on the ground. So this is a basic doormat, and I'm using this mat not to protect my joints, but rather to protect the jump rope. Because it's more expensive, and because I'm jumping rope here on sharp concrete, there's a lot of rocks and stones in this concrete, it can easily damage the rope. So jumping rope on a mat can help preserve the longevity of the jump rope. But if I'm using a basic PVC jump rope, I don't need a mat. I'm not so concerned about protecting the rope because it's so cheap and it's so easy to replace. So I'm not using the mat to protect my joints. Contrary to popular belief, jumping rope is quite a low impact activity. So when we jump rope, we're not really jumping too high off the ground. We're not landing on the ground with too much force. Of course, with some jump rope moves, you might be jumping higher and higher off the ground. But our body has natural shock absorbers. Our feet, our Achilles tendons, our calf muscles, they help to absorb impact. So jumping rope is quite a low impact activity. That said, if you're learning the activity and you do too much too soon, you could maybe cause a little bit of shin bone pain. And it's like anything, if you do too much too soon when you're learning an activity, it can cause damage. Think about if you're learning, say, the guitar, for example. When you first start learning the guitar, your fingers aren't used to the activity, and they're a lot more easy. They can become a lot, they get calloused a lot easier, as opposed to when you've been practicing the activity for quite a long time. Your fingers get used to the activity. They're a lot more resistant to the pressure that the guitar strings place on your fingers. Similarly, if I were to give you a broom today and you haven't swept in a long time, all of a sudden if you start sweeping for, say, 30 minutes, you might notice that you have some blisters forming on the inside here of your hand, or even on your thumbs, for example, because you're not used to the activity. So it's a good idea to gradually do more and more. Same with jumping rope. When you first start jumping rope, maybe you might only do a few minutes, a few times a week, and then over time you can start doing more and more. So let's say you just got a jump rope, you've sized it, and now you want to begin learning how to jump rope. A good thing to practice is simply this. Take the jump rope behind your body like so, okay? And even before you start jumping, a good rule of thumb is to warm up your body, as I'm doing here, rotating my ankles, for example, or my right foot anyhow. You'd want to do the same with the left. You could perform some tapping motions like this, tapping the feet against the ground. You could do some calf raises, like so, just to warm up your feet. And I have some videos on my channel connected with how to warm up your body before jumping rope. So I highly recommend checking those out. I'll even provide a link to one down below in the description. And after you've warmed up, let's say you got the rope behind your body like so, a good thing to try is simply to spin the rope over your head and to try to catch the rope under your 2 feet. So as this rope goes over my head, I'm going to try to raise my feet off the ground like so and catch the rope underneath. That looks like this. Okay, stand up again, pull the rope back. So you can stand over the rope and pull it like that. Or you can stand over it and swing it back. I like to step over it often, spin it, catch it, step over, spin it, catch it, step over. While this might look easy, if you try it for the first time, you might be surprised that it might be difficult to catch the rope under your feet. Your timing might not be right, or you might spin the rope at an angle where the rope passes your feet or gets stuck under only 1 foot. So it can take practice. Okay, now let's see that from a frontal view. So I'm going to spin the rope overhead, lift my feet, and catch the rope underneath. Step over it, slow down a little bit. So when you're learning, you don't have to go too fast. Shows us that if we're able to catch the rope under our feet, that means our spinning technique must be decent enough. Otherwise, it might pass our feet like so. So there, I'm spinning the rope at an angle. I'm actually missing my feet, or I might only get stuck, or the rope might only go under one foot. My timing wasn't good there. I didn't lift my right foot. Okay, so it takes a little bit of practice. Catch it under your both feet like so, and then if you're able to do that, then you could try including a hop. And when you first start jumping rope, you almost want to visualize in your mind. You have the rope behind your legs. You want to visualize the rope going overhead, and once it's going overhead about here, that's when you start kind of pushing into the ground, bend your knees slightly, and then hop. So let's, if I imagine here, rope's going overhead, I push into the ground a little bit, and I hop. Hop. So as the rope is going overhead, that's when you begin to push into the ground a little bit, and bend your knees, and then push off. Notice you don't have to bend your knees too much. Just a slight bend in your knees. And when you first start doing this, you will probably be jumping a little bit higher than necessary. When I first started jumping, I was jumping far too high. But the rope is really not that thick, so you don't need to jump too high off the ground. In fact, it's a good idea just to practice jumping without a rope to get a feel for the motion. Land on the ground, wait for the rope. And notice there, when I'm jumping, I'm not landing with my whole foot on the ground. Rather, we're basically using the toes and the balls of our foot, the forefront of our foot, when we jump rope. Okay, so now we can throw in a jump. I'll go slow, and I'll just complete one rotation. I'm going for one hop here, trying to complete one good hop of the rope. So I have my 2 feet on the ground, and you can even begin, if you want, with your feet slightly elevated off the ground. Just one rotation. See that again. Notice there that my knees are really not bent too much. Show you here from the side. So I'm only completing one rotation, stepping over the rope, and doing another. Step over the rope. So, little by little. And then, if you're able to do one hop, well, then you can try to do 2 hops in a row. And one important thing to notice here, when I am doing, say, 2 hops in a row, when I land on the ground, I'm patient. I wait for the rope to come around before I jump again. There's a thing called like a double hop. If, let's say I spin the rope, I jump over. As soon as I land on the ground, I hop again. Often, when people are new to jumping rope, that's what they do, because their timing is not quite right. So they jump over the rope, land on the ground, jump again, and then jump. So they're throwing in an extra hop. So notice this, when I do 2 spins of the rope, I'm landing on the ground, waiting for the rope to come around again before I jump. Okay, show you that again. Hop, hop. So I'm just waiting for the rope between rotations. Hop, hop. Okay, so practice that. Practice doing 2 hops in a row. When you're able to do 2 in a row very well, then you can throw in a 3rd. Oh, and sometimes it will get stuck in your feet like so. Don't worry about it. It happens to everyone, and it's all part of the learning process. Okay. Okay, and once you get good at doing 3 in a row, then you can go for 4 in a row, 5 in a row. Notice all the while I'm not bending my knees excessively. I'm not jumping high off the ground. I'm keeping my elbows close to the sides of my body because I like that technique. Okay. So let's begin again with the spin and catch with the feet. Okay. Once you're able to do that, then you can try to hop over the rope once. Step over the rope. Okay, so when you first start learning how to jump rope, you don't have to spin the rope fast. You can just go nice and slow. But you need to spin it with enough force to make sure the rope comes overhead. And that will come with practice. Okay, and then once you're able to do one hop well, you try to go for two. And then after that, you go for 3 in a row, 4 in a row, 5 in a row, as many as you can. And you get better at that, you can try to do the 2-foot hop when you move around in a circle. Performing a jump rope move while you move around in a circle can add a layer of complexity. It can make one move become a lot more challenging because your body has to work on coordination. But there you go. I really hope you find this video helpful. And as I said there, as I showed you, the rope got stuck in my foot when I was practicing there. And that's okay, expect that. When you're learning an activity, we will make mistakes. The key is just to not become too frustrated and just keep practicing. It took me a bit of time to learn how to jump rope. When I first started jumping, the rope would often get stuck in my feet. It was very difficult to string a few hops together in a row, but I didn't give up. I just kept on persevering. I practiced with patience, and over time I got better and better, and with each improvement it builds your confidence, and you know that you're able to do something, and it gives you kind of momentum, motivation to keep learning, to keep progressing. So if you're new to jumping rope and you find the activity quite difficult, don't be too hard on yourself. Practice with patience and perseverance, and you'll certainly get the hang of it.